You're listening
to the CD Baby.
CD Baby.
CD Baby.
DIY
Musician
Podcast.
All right, well, here we are again for episode number 37, a Roundtable edition of the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast. My name is Kevin, and joining me are Chris and Robert. Hey, guys.
Howdy.
Well, this is the final episode of our October Podfest.
Podfest.
We made it.
We made it.
That's right.
One a week.
4 episodes in 1 month.
Can you believe it? We're going to have to take a couple months off now.
Yeah, no, don't get your expectations up.
So, how's everyone doing? Everyone good?
I'm
Yeah.
exhausted.
Oh, yeah, Chris, you just got back from a little tour. How was
I
that?
did.
Where
It
did
was-
you even go?
This is great. It was like the worst routed tour ever, but it was more to visit friends and then play along the way. So I played in Madison, Wisconsin, Chicago, New York City, and Boston.
That is quite a routing.
Wow.
Yeah. Flew back yesterday. Played a show in Portland last night.
Wow. Well, cool. I spoke at, I did a little seminar on music licensing at Portland Community College yesterday here with Lisa Lapine, our very own promotion queen here in Portland, who's also made an appearance on the podcast.
How'd that go? You're kind of nervous about that. Was it your first college
Yeah,
lecture?
you know, now that I'm a professor and all, you must refer to me as Professor Kevin. It went good. It was actually really good. Unfortunately, you're trying to cram in about 3 things that could have been 3 separate classes for a whole semester into 1 hour.
Yeah.
And so it was really good. They had tons of great questions. And Lisa reminded me of so many great things that we've talked about on the podcast, and we won't go into right now, but she'll be back on the show soon. And she's definitely somebody I'd say that knows what's going on.
What episode was that? Like number 2?
I think.
She was our first interview, but I think we used it for number 2. So if you haven't listened to episode number 2, go back, listen to it,
Yeah, she's great.
learn it, memorize it, live it.
Well, I'm just going to throw in there. You guys were telling a little bit about what's going on with you, and I just want to say that
This is Robert, by the way.
I ordered a turkey sandwich today, and I said no mayo. I said no mayo, just mustard. So they just gave me a turkey sandwich with just turkey and mustard. I mean, if you say no mayo, just mustard, you're talking about sauce,
About the
right?
condiments,
About
yeah.
the condiments. But there was no tomato, no lettuce, no anything else. It was just mustard, turkey, and bread. If you can
Definitely a
believe that.
communication breakdown.
I know.
All right, well, into the episode, we've got some news items from the week.
CD Baby.
music.
Well, Dell Computers has announced that this week that they're teaming up with Universal Music Group to preload some of its new PCs with 50 or 100 song bundles. According to the Dell website, the preloaded music bundles add $25 for 50 songs or $45 for the 100 song package, and that's a price that gets added on to your total PC purchase. And the bundles range from mixes of blues music to classical and classic rock. Well, you've been waiting, at least I've been waiting, since the early 90s, and it's finally here. Guns N' Roses will finally release Chinese Democracy, if you really want to call it Guns N' Roses. But apparently Best Buy has an exclusive, and it's confirmed for November 23rd. And personally, I'll file this under the I'll believe it when I see it, but it may have put Dr. Pepper in a bit of a spot, as every man, woman, and child in the United States is now eligible to receive a free bottle of Dr. Pepper thanks to a bet gone wrong on Guns N' Roses.
It's a lot of Dr. Pepper.
The well-known brand promised to deliver a free bottle to every American if Guns N' Roses released its long-awaited Chinese Democracy this year.
Wow.
In order to cushion their losses, Dr. Pepper will be making a coupon available for download for a 24-hour period window, and I couldn't find any information about when that will be.
Yeah, they're keeping it down low.
Stephen Jenkins, the lead singer of alternative band Third Eye Blind, is the latest person to agree that the album format is better off dead. Jenkins, whose band is known for such hits as Semi-Charmed Life, Jumper, and How's It Gonna Be, gave the keynote address at the San Francisco Music Tech Summit this past Monday, where Jenkins said, "I don't think it's necessary or useful. The album is an arbitrary concept. It's not something that has to exist." In his speech, he mentioned that he disliked album filler, and the latest Third Eye Blind release will just contain 3 songs and be out on November 18th.
Yeah, the 5-act play is dead too. No one likes Shakespeare anymore.
Yeah.
So those are the headlines I found interesting, and I'm sure, I figured the Stephen Jenkins comment would stir up some emotion for you, Chris.
Yeah, whatever. Arbitrary. Everything in art is arbitrary. A book, a novel, a poem, why does the sonnet have to be 14 lines? You know, like,
yeah, why don't they just tell me the end, how the book ends, and that'll
people are saying the novel's dead too. Maybe
I just want one line of a poem. That's all I want.
I do think, he has a point with most of pop music is basically filler. They've got their one hit that they're going to promote to radio, and then they just write a bunch of, songs to fill out an album and sell it for $15. And I say pop music, I mean like, mainstream stuff that gets on top 40. A lot of it's done that way. But I don't think that the album itself, if you're a good artist making albums, it's a dead format. Artists like himself are probably just planning on selling 3 songs, download, and that's it.
Well, they've always been a radio band too, so I'm sure that Third Eye Blind has always sort of written songs that are meant to stand on their own. Like, I don't think they've written any concept albums or anything.
No concept albums there. But the thing that's interesting to me is that for them, if you have 3 hit songs on an album, that's probably above norm, which their one album did. They made a lot of extra money, people buying a whole CD, when really they just wanted Semi-Charmed Life. So it's kind of interesting to see. I don't know if they're still on a label. I didn't look. I didn't really care. But where if you're doing independently, then, that's one thing. Just releasing 3 songs, saving some maybe costs of distribution or whatever. But I don't know. It seems like they're cutting off a big income stream, and people that still would prefer a CD format. Someone with that high profile, I think it's a bit of a mistake. But to discount the album, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's okay if he wants to discount it for their business model for that band. But I mean, obviously there's plenty of bands out there that are still doing quite well making albums. So.
Yeah, and Radiohead is obviously a band that you see making more album-type albums. I will say that I mentioned in past podcasts that I noticed that the average album these days coming in CD Baby has usually a lot less than 10 songs. Probably 7 is more of an average, and with a lot of them having 5.
Well, and a lot of people are just thinking in terms of that business model because it's easier to make 3 tracks at home than it is to make a full album at home. That's just the way they're thinking, and that's the way they're releasing music. And it doesn't, I don't think it demeans the value of a full album. I don't think full albums will go away. It just may not be, they may not be at the center of the music business.
To me, I can picture, a band like Third Eye Blind who has their radio hit written, stressing out trying to figure out how they're going to fill out the rest of the album for 10 songs and just not wanting to mess with it.
They could do that.
I love that drum beat, though, I have to say, on that song. It makes you...
Was it Don't Step Away from the Cliff, My Friend? Such lyrics.
Yeah. I'm sure many people have backed off from that cliff they're about to jump because of Third Eye Blind. Anyway,
we're not making any friends with Third Eye Blind today.
No. Hey, I've got that album because, I like a good pop song.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. Dell, adding 50 songs to a computer really worth $25 or $45?
Well, I was going to say, if you didn't get a choice of what you're picking and you have to pay extra, I think that preloaded music is great. And actually, I think it's better for indie artists than for mainstream music because becomes a music discovery vehicle. But I don't know if people are really going to buy that. It depends on your taste, and it depends if the music actually appeals to your taste and how many choices you get, and whether after they sell you on every other bell and whistle that you're actually going to want to spend 25 or 50 extra bucks for music.
Yeah, it would seem like it would be something that you'd give away for free. as
Yeah.
a promotion.
Yeah.
Like if you bought this model, you get 25 tracks. If
Totally.
you bought this model, you get 45.
And they
Or
embed the
50.
price, even if they are gonna
50 or
charge.
100, yeah.
If they're gonna charge you more, just don't tell anybody about it. Build it into the price. I had this funny experience when I got my very first MP3 player. I got a little Panasonic thing. It was about the size of a tube of lipstick, and it came with 12 songs on it, 11 of which were total crap, but one of which really was catchy, and I left it on there. Even when I loaded my new music on there, I kept that one song on there, and it was an unknown band. I didn't know who it was. I was like, I got to find out what this band is, and I went online to look it up, and someone hadn't been listening to the CD Baby podcast, so I guess it wasn't around back then, because they did not have a website or any way for me to trace and find out who this band was, which just seemed ridiculous to me at the time. But the fact is that they hooked me. And if the band had had the wherewithal to have some sort of easily found resource out there, I would have bought the album. So
I'm surprised you don't see more people doing preloaded stuff. I know that I'm pretty sure the original Zune had some videos on there.
Yeah.
And it was all mainly indie artists or artists on indie labels.
Does the iPod still do? I know they did the U2 preloaded stuff. I know they were considering a Beatles thing if they ever get around to that.
They haven't done any. They did the U2 one. I don't know if it came preloaded or if you had to actually download it, but I know people have been wanting them to, like major labels have been wanting to.
And actually, Dell has been doing it for a while, because I know when I got my first Dell, probably 8 or 9 years ago, it came with 12 songs on it. And I think a video. One of them was a David Byrne song.
Oh yeah, I had that same computer.
Which is weird because now they're going to charge for that. And
Yeah.
it's like, just give it away. Just,
Yeah.
It's a benefit. We suffered through that checkout process where you thought it was all one machine. Just give it away. All right. Well, I have to mention Guns N' Roses because, we've interviewed Duff McKagan on the podcast.
It's true.
I found it interesting that a company would actually, like Best Buy, hang their hat on Guns N' Roses coming through. He's quite a character, that Axl Rose, and we'll see if that actually happens.
There was a single that did come out a while back, right?
It was a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, and everyone I think made fun of it. So
Yeah,
I
and it
don't
was
know.
kind of it kind of sounded like Guns N' Roses put through crazy techno effects or something.
That guy just needs to put it out, have it fail, set the expectations so low, and then just come out with another thing that's a masterpiece
Yeah.
again.
This will make me sound really old, but when the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 came out, my friend actually camped out till midnight to buy it from the record store because we were both big fans. But that was the last time I remember people actually camping out for an album to get it at midnight. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there were.
I did that for Radiohead. When
Yeah, I'm sure there was some
Amnesiac
after
came
that,
out.
but that was the last time I remember being involved.
Now
in
people
such
just
thing.
set their alarm clocks and wake up in the middle of the night and download it.
No, they've got BitTorrent doing it all night long.
Right.
All right. Well, in our last interview, we talked to John Oates, and it was very nice of him to come on the show. And he said a lot of interesting things that I'm surprised more artists of his stature aren't doing these days, and specifically just stepping away from the mainstream industry and kind of going it on their own. And I was surprised to find out that they've been doing it since the 90s. And, obviously he's got a big name that he can leverage for things, but I thought there was a lot of ideas there that indie artists could learn from. But I wanted to kind of talk about some new music business models I've seen popping up that, artists can kind of glean from and take some things. And one would definitely be what John's doing, where he's kind of doing everything in-house. He's got people working for him, but he's not interested in a label and just kind of running it as, an indie label in a lot of the ways. But there's other things out there that there's been a lot of talk lately about these 360 deals, and it's starting to catch on in the indie music world, where in the news, Madonna signed with Live Nation, where Live Nation gives them a much larger advance up front, but takes a cut of the pie and has their fingers in everything: merchandising, the live show, the recording. And that's starting to spill out in the indie music world. And I was just wanting to get everyone's take on that.
Well, wait, what's the difference between that and a record label?
Well, a record company, they're going to give you an advance, and they're going to put your album out in stores and just collect money off of the album sales. Where this,
and maybe some publishing.
And maybe some publishing. Where this is, they're going to handle your merchandising, like T-shirts. They're going to handle, be involved in the whole concert process in some form or fashion and get a big chunk of that. and probably almost act as a manager in some sense. I'm sure you'd still have a manager, but
So it's kind of consolidation of all the different companies and services that a big artist might be working
I
with.
guess like all your revenue streams now go through one company.
Yeah,
basically.
and so that's a big obvious example, and so you would technically get more money up front and then getting a smaller cut on the back end, but they're helping you out in more areas.
Your accounting might be a little bit easier, I suppose.
Yeah, they take it all now. But it's starting to spill over in the indie world because indie labels are, they have a harder time making ends meet off of just album sales off of an indie artist. And so I've been seeing it pop up with a bunch more indie labels where they'll give you a bigger advance, but they're taking a lot more of the pie. And obviously they're going to have a lot more input into your career.
Well, see, that's the scary thing. Is like, is it really indie when you have so much of your business wrapped up in a company? I mean, it's like you're being employed.
Do you know what size indie labels you're talking about that do this?
I've seen, I have a friend that has like a really small, it has national distribution, but it wouldn't matter saying the names of anything because you would never have heard of it and never known of any of the artists, and that's kind of how he operates. So I've seen this really happening a lot with the real, true indie labels that are trying to make ends meet because it's really hard to make money just off album sales. And not only is it hard to make money off album sales, the money trickles in. So that's part of the issue as well, is that I may make $10,000 off this release when all is said and done, but that's going to be spread out over maybe years.
I mean, I guess one of the positive things is they're going to have more of a vested interest because your success on all levels is going to impact them. Whereas, a label might just be interested in the CD sales and not so much everything else that goes along with it. But company that's doing the 360 thing is going to be like, we want you to be successful as a performer, successful as a, recording artist, successful as a touring artist. Like all those things are going to be very apparent.
Yeah, and that's the trade-off. And I've seen some very heated arguments online about both sides, but some artists that are for it are saying, this is the only way we can make money. They give us more money up front, and then they take care of a lot of the burden that we would have to do ourselves. Especially for indie artists, like dealing with merch and stuff can be a real pain, and it can be one of those things that gets neglected, and where they'll take care of it. They're going to take a big chunk of it, but they'll take care of it. And
Did they do tour support?
Yeah, they do tour support. And so generally, it's them having a presence in all aspects of your career as opposed to a record company just putting out your album.
And how do these companies actually protect themselves? Because, in basically putting money up front into an artist like a band, especially, like you have, basically 5 slacker musicians that like you've invested money in. How do they make sure that they're
just like any other contract? I mean, they're not giving them as much money as Madonna got
right
from Live Nation. But I don't know. I've just been seeing like this band, the label I mentioned, that the guy I know, it's basically a requirement, that the stuff that they sell at their shows, they account for to him, which I don't know. That
Yeah, that's
I'm mixed feelings.
That's where artists definitely are going to start to draw the line, or sort of become uncomfortable. Is it like, wait a minute, I made this CD, my buddy designed the cover, we recorded it, put our blood, sweat, and tears in it. Why can't I get, how come I have to give $5?
On the other hand, though, the guy who runs a label is a business owner, and he wants to make sure the business is running smoothly, and they shouldn't assign the contract if they're uncomfortable with paying him.
True.
For that merch or the discs or anything like that.
True. And a lot of when you're on tour, you're a smaller indie band, a lot of times all the cash you're making is going right back into the gas tank and right back into food or hotels and stuff like that. So to then cop up the money at the end that you supposedly owe.
Well, and hopefully they would be helping with some of that,
Yeah.
But who knows? But I thought it was worth mentioning because I'm seeing it more and more, and because it makes it easier for someone to try and start a label or try and get something going if you think, okay, this changes the financial picture if I can acquire more of the profit.
So if any of you guys out there in our audience have done a 360 deal, let us know. Give us a call at our call-in line and tell us about your experiences for good or for bad.
And that brings me to the next business model I've seen pop up recently. We have a blog at CD Baby. It's cdbaby.org. It's been there forever, but the most useful purpose I think it serves is that people will ask other artists, hey, have you heard of this company? Have you heard of that company? Well, this one company artist asked about, boy, the blog is just caught on fire, this particular post.
We're not going to mention
no
any
names
names.
to protect maybe the innocent, maybe the guilty. But basically their whole idea is that the artist has to provide the opposite. They don't get an advance. They have to advance the record company some cash. And, I've seen those scams in the past, and this time it's like the instance where I really can't tell if they're really trying to make it work and weed out the slacker musicians, or if it's just a total scam. So basically, all in all, what you would get if you were signed with them the value would be far beyond your $2,000 investment. But it's just one of those things where I don't know.
Even if you're a business that has the best of intentions, if people start giving you money up front and you start, you may not even have the resources to handle 20 musicians who sign up with you and give them fair treatment, but then say 100 more sign up and give you this money. So you've got tons of cash. You don't, only this many resources. Like
ill-equipped to service the people that just paid you.
Exactly. And I think that as good as your intentions, like it looks and smells a little bit like a scam because, it's hard to promote a lot of artists at the same time. And you can only do so much no matter how many resources you have. The more people involved, the more artists that you're promoting, it becomes that whole thing of promotion in bulk. Like, how can you do it? Does it work? Like, it usually doesn't.
The other thing I was thinking about is that not really knowing what their other criteria is that they're looking at, but if it's simply based on money, you could have some sort of hobbyist who's actually a lawyer or a doctor who has plenty of money just to throw it in there, whereas the touring band that's out there, really talented, really going for it, they probably have no money. So it's not really
and that's
weeding
why
out the best stuff.
That's one of the main arguments on the blog post, and part of it why I'm not exactly sure if they're really trying to do something legit or if it's like a total scam is because the company that is doing this has a very large established book publishing division, and so they were trying to start kind of this music thing. So I couldn't quite tell if it was just, it didn't seem like the kind of company that if you've got making that much money selling books, you're not going to waste your time to rip off a couple of artists,
Right.
So I couldn't really tell, and it just seemed like, I don't know, is that something where people would be open to, the idea of laying up some cash and, there's a contract, so if they don't deliver the goods, I mean, you could always sue them. It's not like you're just sending them your bank account info. And,
just always be careful about a company that asks you for money for something that's ethereal like success or fame, like if that's what they're selling you on, like
I must be able to buy fame. I must. Well, let's get to my favorite section. Not that I don't enjoy talking to you guys, meaning Chris and Robert, but we love hearing from our listeners, and we have some phone calls, so let's get to it.
CD Baby Podcast.
Message line
206-426-5683.
The number you have dialed
206-426-5683.
Hey there at CD Baby Podcast, Prophet Noise here. I know you guys didn't seem to like the music on a digital stick idea, but I love it. I've actually been doing it with USB flash drives for quite a while. I do electronic music, which is technology-driven music, and so an album on USB flash drive is probably more appropriate than maybe pop or rock or definitely country. But I really can't wait for the day I move completely away from CDs. I'm releasing all my future albums digital download only, no CD, no record, no wasteful tangible product. So when I'm at a show, how do I sell albums with no CDs? I get 1 gig USB flash drives. I can put whatever songs in whatever format I or the fan wants, be it WAV or MP3 or FLAC. I can put extra songs and text and picture files. When I have a video, I can put that on there. Anything else I could think of can go on a USB stick. The fan can buy the stick for a comparable price to a blank 1 gig USB stick in a store. They could put all my songs onto their computers, their friends' computers, and then they have a USB stick to use for whatever they want. They can't do that with a CD, and kids don't even have CD players anymore. And when they come to my next show, they can buy the next album directly off my laptop onto their USB stick. That's no cost for me. That's pure profit. Plus, for them, it's going to be a lot cheaper than buying a USB stick album or a CD or a record. And I'm poor. I'm a true independent artist. I don't really have a day job other than music in my various talents that I have. But I can't afford to master and press an album every time I want to release something, and I have tons of new material all the time. If I want to release a new USB stick album, I just delete it and put on the new stuff. I can't delete and change that box of CDs I have sitting here with my old album on it, which is available on CD Baby. Thanks for the great podcast. I'm Prophet Noise. It's one word spelled PROPHETNOISE. Google it. I am all over the interweb. Listen to my music and have a good time. Peace.
Hey, what's up? This is David Hull from Fresno, California. I'm a musician and bass player for the band Flyrite. But anyway, my story about a rugged gig is all about having moved to L.A., and being new to the town and not really know what's going on. I got a jazz gig, or so I thought, that I was supposed to hire a band for. And it was a little bit funny because I did not specify how long we were to play, and I hired two of my good friends who are very definitely professional musicians, and they're used to having a pretty good situation set up beforehand, and I was pretty embarrassed because this jazz gig, or so I thought, ended up being, let's hire about 15 random musicians and put them on stage to play for 9 hours. So, in the midst of all that, we were paid a very small fee for the amount of time, and I kind of walked away hanging my head, and I told the guys that they could probably go home and they wouldn't even be noticed. So I paid them out of my own pocket, got them out of there, and it was a pretty good learning experience to specify exactly what the gig is before you book it. So anyway, that's my story, and I hope you enjoyed it. And go CD Baby DIY podcast. I like you guys a lot. All right, take it easy.
Hello, this is George Harrington with the CD called Court Jester. Well, I have a story. When I was young, a friend of mine and myself played at a club, and we would never really rehearse. So what happened was he got this job at a big club, and we got a big ovation. And the people really liked us before we started to play, but what happened was we got up and we sucked. So, because of no rehearsals. So, actually, we had to call in another band, which was really, something else at that time. So, what happened was he came back, and we actually got paid for the job, but it taught me a big lesson. And the lesson is always rehearse, or you're going to suck. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Always rehearse. Good lesson.
That is a good lesson. My favorite part of his call was that they gave us a standing ovation and they really liked us until we started to play.
How do you get a standing ovation before you even play?
Probably, they announced them and the crowd was excited. I don't know.
What was it? They called in
another band.
They called in another band. Like, get the hotline.
Yeah, I know. The band phone. But as for the flash drives, I think we stand corrected, maybe.
Well, I never said it was a bad idea or we didn't like it. I just I haven't seen it executed where people actually go for it.
Yeah. Well, he made a lot of really good points.
He did. I'm like, flash drive, baby? I don't know.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, especially for that genre of music. Like you said, probably there's not a lot of flash drive toting country stars out there yet.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's economical for indie musicians. You can put whatever content on there. You can replace the content. It's easy for, your fans to share that music if that's something you feel okay with.
See, I could see a country artist like Reba McEntire selling a keychain flash drive with her picture on it and an album on there.
Yeah, well, who knows?
The thing that to me is before anything really shifts is that the consumer side of it has to be figured out.
Yeah.
You can't force it on people, and I think that's what people tend to do a lot. With the iPod, it came out, this finally makes sense for us to buy into the whole MP3 thing because this thing's easy to use. Where with flash drives, I mean, you might as well just download it. I mean, I don't know. That's just always been my thing. When someone presents it in a way that seems to make sense, I think consumers would go for it.
You know, there's still that need for artists to sell things at shows, and like this guy said, like it could be, you know, you can have a music video, 10 songs, you know, you can have them in different formats. You could probably you can put a lot more on a USB drive than people are actually willing to pay for and download and wait for to download.
It is a cool idea, though, where he was saying that, you know, if he's cranking out a lot of music and he has a good following and people know that he does that, then them having the ability to bring a flash drive and just buy the files.
Totally.
So, I mean, it for his case, you know, it's where he's making a lot of music. It makes total sense. And it's an interesting angle for
and that would be
out.
Really great. I mean, I've heard of, you know, people actually doing this, you know, where they record a live show and then sell the show afterwards.
Yeah, Joseph Arthur does that at all his shows.
That would be a good thing, a good way to put things on. You know, live shows in general, the sort of stuff that you might not sell, you might not distribute through iTunes, but you might want to just make available to make a quick buck at your show or something. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, that's those were your phone calls, and again, our listener line is 206-426-5683. Feel free to call early, often. Late,
in the middle of the night, it doesn't matter. You won't wake us up.
You won't wake us up. We're not sitting by that phone. It just goes straight to voicemail. Leave us a message, and we'll try and get it on the show. But that's going to conclude this podcast, and it's going to conclude October Podfest. So we hope you enjoyed our diligence in putting out a new episode every week, and we're probably going to be going back to the every other week schedule. And again, if you've been enjoying this show, we'd really appreciate it if you'd cruise on over to the iTunes podcast section, find our page, and leave some positive comments. And it helps helps get the word out there about the show.
Makes us look good.
And always remember, practice or you're going to suck.
Practice.
You've been listening to the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, broadcasting from Portland, Oregon, USA.